was introducing me. I think vehicle tech is going through a huge amount of convergence, transformation, and like we know, this is not a single domain or a single area's play. It is a whole ecosystem that's involved. There's manufacturing giants, there's OEMs, there's electronics, there's communications and connectivity, which is at the heart of it. And while we have the intelligent vehicle, the protocols, the driver rating, ADAS, there is so many terms that we've heard in the recent past. And I think the whole benefits are immense, although it may not all appear so far. It's a complicated world, and I am personally very glad that we are witnessing this in this lifetime, and we will see a lot of the benefits that are here to come very soon. We're already seeing some of them. It almost feels like a science fiction movie coming true. If you look back, 30 years back, we hadn't thought about this is where we will be. Without spending too much time on the whole topic, because we've several experts here, I'd love to invite all my panelists, and we'll go one by one, all the leaders to share their point of view on this whole space. What's happening in their organization? What's happening in the ecosystem? Where do you see how much innovation is happening? Where do you see this is heading? And so on. I'd like to first invite Mr. Uppal. Mr. Uppal is the Senior Executive Director, HR and IT at Maruti Suzuki. He's a mechanical engineer from Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, and has been associated with Maruti Suzuki almost since inception. He's got a whole experience of 30 years, all with Maruti, and I'm sure he's seen the whole journey around it. He's also pioneered the training academy in Maruti Suzuki, MSTA, which has garnered accolades and such as Brendan Hall Award for LMS, etc. He's also been awarded with the prestigious awards like Global CIO, CIO Choice, Best CIO of the Year, Chairman of the CIO Forum of CII, etc. Avid reader and gadget geek, which is not a surprise, and with many other interests. Mr. Uppal, would love to invite your thoughts in this space and what's happening within Maruti.
Mr. Uppal, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Kavita, for inviting me, and thank you so much, Vinita, for a nice introduction. I think this is a subject which is very close to my heart, and also as a OEM, I think this is one critical area for us. Now, to just set the context for me, maybe to elaborate on the point which Vinita just said and all, I think for me, three big changes which is happening in the industry. One is the whole consumers are changing to looking for technology and way of engaging with OEMs. Second, our products are changing with all of technology coming into that and all. And third, the whole technology landscape is maturing more and more to add value to the businesses. And then technology, I mean whole lot of technologies like AI, IoTs, AR, VR, and NLP, and so on and so forth around and on. So with these three contexts, I think the way we are looking at this is into three different space for working in Maruti Suzuki. For us, first and foremost is the customer experience. Now, how do you make customer experience more engaging, more important, including connected everything around that? And I'll elaborate on that as we go along. Second, we are looking at very clearly is how do we have a operational excellence in the whole organization, using all these new technologies to work and all, whether it's IoTs or the sustainability and so on and so forth. Now, how do we add technology to really build the excellence in your operations? Third and important pillar of our strategy is about data. How we create that whole data-driven organization and then make sure that we implement all the possible technologies possible to really get value of that and all, to understand that whole data consumption in the importance as a culture in the organization, to look at that. Now, keeping these three in mind, and let me elaborate all three of them and see that how do we really work on each one of them. First is customer experience. Uh, we map the whole customer experience into a digital journey of the customer. And today, almost 24 out of 26 touch point with the customer are digital. Whether you search about the car on your website, or you really want a test drive. So all the whole journey is something which we have been able to digitalize, and 24 of them out of the digital now. Second important element to this is really make sure that as a customer experience, can you make it very seamless, personalized experience, digital experience for the customer throughout this journey is the way we are trying to get this whole technology to work for us. Uh, and really, as an organization, how can we improve the lifetime value from the customer? Now, uh, only I'm sure you heard yesterday we launched our new model, New Age Baleno, this thing, which is our first OEM connected product in the industry, where each and every element of technology brought in by Suzuki into Suzuki Connect is there to really manage the whole customer life cycle, and anything on that connectivity is there to be consumed by customer for his own ease and convenience, for service center to manage the vehicle performance and so on and so forth, and ensure that in time to come we can add many more value added services on top of it as we go along. So that's the first piece of customer experience we are working on. And these are not like ERPs that you buy once and implement that and forget about it. These are journey which you keep working in agile mode, keep learning more use cases, keep on adopting that and all, and getting to new age maturity as we go along is the way this is being done to work on. Similarly, on customer experience, the other part is very important, is about the customer profiling, target marketing, and so on and so forth, and all. And important element to that also is the whole new business model which you are able to create out of that and all. I think we came out with a shared mobility as a platform on a customer journey, where we could, instead of buying, provide vehicle on subscription. It could be a very short term or long term to work on. And there are many more products on this area being maintained by our digital team to ensure that, including smart financing, is something, a platform we have built for customers to choose best finance possible in the industry to really have the ownership. The whole the bottom line is, how can we create higher customer engagement and make that whole working with us more delightful for him to work on, is the customer experience we are working on. Second area is the whole area of operational excellence. There, the whole technologies of IoT, and auto has been always pioneer in connecting shop floors to the IT, and for us, IT OT integration has been a maybe 20-year-old phenomenon to work on. But making sure that each and every robot get connected to your IoT platform, each and every device get connected to your platform, and you can really work very closely with. So moving from a making right product for right quality and right customer, to the whole industry 4.0 space, where a digital twin of the factory can manage your operations brilliantly, is the journey which again is being done in our industry, and ensuring that there's an intelligent automation on the shop floor, where you can manage the rule-based organization, a very strong edge computing network to ensure that the decision which is required in the shop for instantaneous action to be taken are taken, and then you have a backend data to predict failures and predict the energy consumptions and all the power consumption information to ensure that you optimize on your power cost into the plant, and so on and so forth, is the use cases which are really working brilliantly in this to handle that and all. including something like smart logistics for, all logistics to happen. And today, in the age when the supply chain is getting center stage to manage our operations, managing from tier 4 suppliers to the OEM. How do you really monitor the whole supply chain for any risk involved into that and all, and to manage that and all, create that visibility into that, and then ensure that you take right decisions for your manufacturing? Is the area of operational excellence which is we are working on, which is much beyond your traditional way to manage your businesses and all. And last and important area is the whole quality monitoring, right from customer feedback on quality to your plant quality to your design quality. How do you integrate all those things together to really build the use cases into the industry? Important area to really take it last in my area is the data driven, with the very integrating the whole sort of data into a single platform, whether it's your ERP information, your customer information from your customer facing system, your IoT devices throwing data to your systems around, including connected cars. So getting that whole data and create various use cases, whether it's the forecasting, whether it's the analytics on pricing or warranty predictions or preventive maintenance of the vehicle. How to get all those use cases in place to ensure that you serve your customer better at much more optimal cost and much more seamlessly and painlessly is the way we have been working on. So this has been a journey which we have been a strategy which we have been working on all the three domains, and making sure that in each journey the business value get monitored as we go along, and see to it that in the journey, in a agile way, we keep on improving the maturity of each and every areas of work on there. To do this, you know, we have been working with the traditional partners to work on, but important area which we have really nurtured is the whole startup ecosystem on that of open innovation, where we run multiple programs of engaging with the startup community, which traditionally, large enterprise has not been able to really manage their system and operations to work on. But I think we have been working multiple programs for various stage of startups, maybe some B schools where just at the incubation stage of idea. We run a mail program of our own where the POC stage startup can be built and get adopted. Or also third is the mature startups, which is done by a organization like T-Hub and all, so that we can get engaged based on our problem statement, get right partners to do it very quickly into the system and adopt that to really work on, is the way we have been working on, frankly. So in the whole journey, there are various value creation is driven from our not top management directly. And I think we are seeing a very significant value coming out of this in our journey as we go along. That's my initial comments. I think we'll talk about it later when the new question comes in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Uppal. And when you were describing this, I was just thinking, be it the automotive sector or any other sector, the tenets remain the same. Customer, you said, is at the heart of everything. You're doing a customer-centered approach. You're tapping on the ecosystem like the universities and startups, and that's exactly what we do. Even like I represent Dell, and it's a tech company, but exactly the same thing. And quality remains, of course, topmost priority for everyone with a database approach. So I was just looking at that formula is such a lift and shift for any industry, and it's amazing how that still remains a tenet in the intelligent vehicle space. I'd love to invite our next speaker, Mr. Bob Paul Raj. Mr. Bob, and I know Kavita did a brief introductions, but I'll go a little bit more in detail. Mr. Bob is the head of connected and digital platforms at Mahindra & Mahindra, and he's played the tech leadership roles before this at Tata Elxsi, Aston, Hyundai Mobis. And Bob has more than 5 Indian patent applications and grants and multiple publications to his credit. And when we were connecting before the conference, I did see that be it any connected intelligent vehicle conference and Mr. Bhatt's viewpoints are all there. So this is his deep space. Sir, I invite you to share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thank you, Vinita. That was a fine introduction, and thank you, CII, for inviting me to speak up here. So I think most of the aspects was already covered by you in the beginning and by Mr. Rupal, you know, especially on the digital transformation side, because with the onset of the pandemic, you have a rapid adoption of various digital systems and integrating to them together. So let's take one step backward and see what are the expected outcomes of digital transformation. So as it has already been described, so customer engagement is the key. But to deliver the right kind of customer engagement, what else do you need? You need to empower your employee. You need to have lean processes. And then you need to have transformed business products or work out different business models. Now, if these are the outcomes that you desire out of the digital transformation, what are the critical levers driving this? And you already have a lot of platforms in place, and some of them working in silos, and there's a lot of work integrating all of them. What are those critical levers that has to work together to deliver this? It's the people, process, and things. These are the three critical levers that has to work together and deliver the value that you intend to deliver to the customer. And this is exactly what is happening even in a connected vehicle platform as well, or a connected system. Let us take a simple example on a daily basis that we see in and out in our system. Let's say we have a last mile mobility customer who owns a fleet, let's say 10 light commercial vehicles, is operating in a city, and then he faces a breakdown. One of his vehicles faces a breakdown. The onboard telematics unit on the vehicle triggers a call to the call center, and the call center executive looks at the diagnostics and runs some other remote diagnostics to find out what the real problem is, and he in turn drives the roadside assistance module automatically, and from there, based on the location of the vehicle, the nearest dealer is notified with the necessary tools, what has to be done, and he goes there, and within the hour he's out back on the road continuing his business without any business disruption, and it saves his day. So in this small example, what did you see? You've actually tried to make the customer happy, and you have engaged him so that you avoided his business disruption. In the traditional times, you call the toll-free number, you wait, then he comes, he assesses the problem, and all that takes some time, but it's not done within a few minutes or less than an hour. Here, that whole experience has changed, right? So you've made the customer happy, you've engaging him. Not only that, you have empowered the employee. And how is the employee empowered? The call center executive is not a highly qualified gentleman there. It is the data that has been provided to him, which has empowered him to take the decisions, going through all the levels of approvals that previously we used to have. That has gone away. And then finally, it's the lean process. Here, you get the call, the diagnostic code hits the call center, and then from there, the decision is taken, it's the RSA roadside assistance module, and help is delivered. As simple as that, right? So all this is the outcome that is expected for a digital transformation. So what is the connected vehicle doing? So connected vehicle is actually trying to solve a business problem through measurable outcomes. And here the measurable outcome is nothing but bringing the truck back on the road, right? And it could be done through machine learning or edge compute and all this. But the fundamental remains the same: engage the customer, empower the employee, and maintain lean process. And this is achieved through you know uh, integrating people, process, and things. And this also calls for new business models. You know, so now the RSA, there's more faith in the RSA system. So it invites more subscriptions to the RSA model. And so that triggers more. So it further triggers, if you look in even deeper, it triggers how you're going to manage your supply chain for those kind of space. You further look into it, the analytics. Okay, why these failures? Is it a region-based failure? Is it a particular sector-based failure? And is it the driving habit failure in that particular region? And so do we need to stock our spares for that particular kind of failures? So you go deeper and deeper and deeper, it keeps going. So typically what is a true connected services according to me is, it's nothing but using vehicle data, integrating with context, and enabling the various business stakeholders to derive the expected business outcomes. So that's the whole thing about connected services. Now let's try to apply this back into the product development. Because we've been doing that. So the traditional product development is you have a small sample space. You conceptualize a product, and because that is your consumer base that you have. And then during the development, you make a lot of trade-offs. You make a lot of business decisions. You have time pressure, cost pressure. And then eventually you deliver the product, but still your business outcome is not very predictable. It can go either way, positive or negative, or somewhere in between, right? So, but to a certain extent you predict. But how do I convert this to a predictable business outcome? So it is nothing but it depends upon how you ideate your product. How do you realize and utilize your product? So that is where the concept of the digital twin comes in. So consumer actually drives you to deliver the product that he needs. So that is where ideation is. So you have a digital twin platform where you have your physical and statistical models there, and your live environmental data is fed into that. And it's a kind of crowdsourcing, and you understand what the customer wants. And that way, using the platform, you start building your product through simulations and even enterprise integration and system integration and visualizations, right? Which helps you build the product much faster in a more economical way. So typically what you might spend 2 kgs of steel, you might be spending 1.5 kgs of steel there for that optimized design. So that's where digital twin becomes handy. And it doesn't stop there. Once the product is out and how the product is utilized, digital twin platform offers different services. Your service integration, your warranty management, your supply chain, and how your manufacturing forecast, all that can be done on the digital platform. So it is a simple digital thread that you see from a simple vehicle data integrated to the system, and you knit it together, you start delivering the experience. At the end of the day, what is it as an OEM that you're going to do? We are looking at delivering an experience. And to deliver that experience to the customer, what is the cornerstone? Your data strategy. And all the OEMs are moving towards data strategy, and we are going towards a software-centric approach. Because that is when you can really, deliver that experience that you actually want to the customer. Because decisions are no longer going to be intuition-based, or it's not going to be intuitive. It is going to be based on hard facts or hard data that you have. And that is what is going to drive the organization. and connected vehicles plays a very, very key role. So this is my take on the initial thoughts on connected vehicles, how it can be used to deliver experience and in product development. And of course, there are different challenges which we will talk about.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Very, very comprehensive view of of the whole ecosystem. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Amit Jain. Mr. Amit Jain is the Executive Director, Advanced Electronics Domain and Group Chief Technological Officer at Uno Minda. Mr. Amit plays a vital role in Uno Minda Group as he works towards realizing the vision of the group and has in place to become a technology leader. He also heads the Uno Minda Group's R&D center, CREATE, C-R-E-A-T, and ensures the group has tapped the growing market by incubating new products, making existing product portfolio smarter, along with accelerating Uno Minda Group's move from the component supplier to the system supplier. Over to you, Mr. Amit.
Yeah, thanks, Vanita, and thanks, CIF, for having me here. Real excited to be here. I think I'll just take a slightly macro perspective on the theme of of the discussion today, more to do with connectivity and sustainable mobility. So, when we really speak of sustainable mobility, what does that really mean for all of us? I think from my perspective, it means more faster and safer modes of transportation. It means more environmental friendly, less polluted way of traveling from point A to point B. It means multimodal transportation, that you can switch different modes of transportation and get again faster and safer from point A to point B, and at the same time all this at a very affordable cost, and trying to keep this whole thing more affordable. So these are the key tenets, let's say, of what I believe would be sustainable mobility. And what's driving this entire move towards more sustainable mobility are what I would call, or I think what's been commonly called now as the four macro trends, often referred to as CASE or ACEs. And they basically revolve around electrification, revolve around shared mobility, revolve around autonomous. And these three are very key elements of our future sustainable mobility. What joins all of them together is connectivity. So all the four macro trends of connectivity, autonomous, shared, and electrified, I think, come together and are very closely stitched by connectivity. So connectivity can be looked as the key enabler of these whole four macro trends. If you speak about autonomous, I think you can't think of autonomous or ADAS-enabled car without having a good data pipe into these vehicles. It aids in decision making. It ensures that you have less false positives. You have a better and a more energy efficient way of going from point A to point B again. If you look at electrified, I think with energy efficiency being extremely important, what keeps these vehicles more and more efficient and ensuring that all the electronics within the car works well is again a key piece. Is cloud analytics and things that you can do to ensure that these vehicles are more efficient as they move. You reduce range anxiety by knowing how far you can go and where's the closest point that you can recharge. And third, if you look at shared, I think shared without connectivity again is definitely not possible. It does connect all these multimodal methods of transportation together. It also connects consumers, infrastructure, maybe also companies that offer shared mobility together. So this entire four macro trends get really stitched together with connectivity, and I think this is the most important piece. I think what also is important is as we go forward towards these trends, it won't just be about the vehicle. It won't just be about mobility. It will also take into consideration how infrastructure companies or energy companies, or actually for that matter, smart cities or I think utility companies would all come together. And again, how would these all come together? It would be through various forms of connectivity as well as digital transformation that will come together. So you could call it IoT, you could call it different methods that you would you would enable at an organization level or at a country level. Regulations again is going to play a very important role as these macro trends evolve. We will, I think, hopefully in this seminar talk about cybersecurity threats and things that would happen when this whole evolution happens. So I think from my perspective, these macro trends are really going to govern, how we move towards the sustainable path. Yeah, thank you, Vinita.
Thank you, Mr. Amit. No, I think that connectivity that you spoke about is at the foundation of the whole success. And I'm glad we are trending so fast on improving our ecosystem in the country. With that, I'd love to invite Vishwanath Ramaswamy. Mr. Vishwanath is the Vice President, Digital Solutions Incubation at Tata Communications, also the sponsor of this event and the CII CDT. Vishwanath, commonly known as Vishy, so I'll stick to Vishy, is a telecom industry leader with over 3 decades of experience in the communications industry and has a vast knowledge about various networking technologies and the associated IT solutions. He has been a thought leader in the areas of technology convergence and industry application of mobile network technologies. Over to you, Vishy, for your thoughts.
Thanks, Vinita, and thanks, CIA, for having me over here for this discussion. I'm going to little bit switch gears from the thread that has been followed by the earlier speakers. So one key thing that was common across all the conversation from the earlier speakers has been connected, right? Let me try and focus more towards the word connected. So you have, I'll break this down into connected, mobility, and sustainability into 3 separate areas, and probably I'll give you a little view about what I think about them, and then what we as a company, Tata Communications, is doing about it, right? So that's what I'll talk about. So being connected is the key word that cuts across anything that is being done today, whether you're doing something when the vehicle is on the road, or doing something when the vehicle is being manufactured, or even when the vehicle is being serviced, or any of those stages. Being connected is an important thing, right? So base connectivity for remote telemetry for the vehicle has been there for a long time. There are almost all vehicle OEMs, not only passenger car segment, but even other vehicles, commercial vehicles, etc. They have been using remote telemetry as a means for having, for sensing the health of the vehicle and certain other mandatory tasks that they want to perform, or collect data about the vehicle performance and so on and so forth. But that's not all when you talk about a connected vehicle. The point is that there are multiple things that happen within a vehicle when they are on the road. One is telemetry that you need to do. The second part is the infotainment that you need to provide to the passengers of the car. The third is how do you ensure the safety, security of the driver and the people inside the vehicle, right? So for all of these things, now if you need to unify all of them together and have a common sort of infrastructure within the vehicle to provide all the 3, the telemetry part, the safety, security part, and the infotainment part together, there is an expectation of a very, very strong connectivity. And the other part is the vehicles on the move. And so hence there is a mobility part. So hence a wireless network becomes an important element in this entire ecosystem. So without a wireless network, this connected mobility, is not something which is sustainable, or it cannot be, achieved. So and there has been a lot of advancements in technology that have happened in the wireless network area, particularly with the introduction of 5G. Now, what was being looked at as an optional condition with the vehicle is now slowly turning out to be a mandatory condition or mandatory feature. We heard Maruti Suzuki launching the new vehicle with PON connected type of a facility, right? So, and there are people in both the industries, the automotive industry and the communication industry, coming together to make this happen. I'm sure that many of you would be aware of 5G Automotive Association, which is spearheading these initiatives in Europe. And there are a lot of these initiatives that are happening. So having a network as good as a 5G network is something which is important from a connectivity point of view. Provides you a huge bandwidth, which is good enough for you to run infotainment plus telemetry plus safety security together, and all the other good features that 5G brings in, right? So that's something. Second part is the mobility. Now the mobility, a vehicle is meant to provide mobility, but I look at mobility slightly above that from a connectivity point of view. How does the connectivity enable mobility, right? Wireless cellular technologies, by inherently they enhance or they provide the required mobility for vehicles. And apart from that, if you have to really have a seamless mobility across geographies, even across countries, in places like continental Europe, in places probably even in Asia, in Africa, in places where countries are connected together over land, and if you need to move seamlessly between them, so providing a seamless roaming for the vehicle from a connectivity point of view, from a wireless connectivity point of view, and also providing you the ability to be connected when you are on the move, right? That's another thing that is important, that the 5G type of a network, along with associated technologies like Edge, etc., they provide that type of ability. One other development that's happening in this area is this basic connectivity, the edge infrastructure, and the requirement for mobility come together, and there is this new thing that is evolving, taking speed, called V2X, right? I'm sure that many of us know what vehicle to anything is about. So what it enhances is not looking at a vehicle as a standalone entity, which provides some sort of a required communication for the driver and the passengers in the vehicle, and probably the vehicle OEM. Breaking from there, how do you make vehicles talk to each other when they are on the move? How do you enable vehicle and the smart city infrastructure integrate to manage traffic, to manage safety, etc.? And all of those things. So V2X probably is another. So from a standalone connectivity or a standalone autonomous vehicle, how do you move them towards an interoperable connectivity, a seamless experience? That's something that is provided by V2X, and that also brings in the ecosystem of the OEM, the vehicle owner, and the smart city infrastructure to come together to provide a mobility, right? So, and this will ultimately probably lead to an autonomous, vehicle solution. And all I'm talking about is not only about passenger cars; it's also equally, is important for commercial vehicles, for goods transportation, and so on and so forth, right? So this is the connected and the mobility part that we can talk about, right? And then finally, how does a network also enable sustainability, right? The key thing to that is what even Amit was talking about as multimodal type of a transportation. So how do you, using the connected infrastructure, how do you integrate multiple modes, maybe individual cars, maybe shared vehicles, metro rail, all other type of mobility solutions that are being made available by the city infrastructure. How do you integrate all of them together? Can we bring in a platform-based approach to integrate multiple modes of communicate mobility? Can you bring mobility as a subscription, like what Mr. Upal spoke about in his initial thought was, can you make this like a subscription basis? Can you, like you have anything as a service, can you make mobility as a service? So these are all things which are being enabled by communication infrastructure. So we in Tata Communications are focusing on all of these areas, whatever I spoke about, right? So we do enable wireless networks like 5G type of networks for OEMs in their factories, and also work with infrastructure providers to extend it outside the factory onto the road. We also have a connected mobility platform, which we excel in providing mobility to vehicles so that the vehicles can get connected to the OEMs for all the three things that I mentioned. Could be for infotainment, could be for telemetry, or could be for safety and security. So, and we do that across countries. So we are able to provide you a roaming connectivity across countries when you move from country to country at in a way that the user of the vehicle doesn't have to take the headache of providing, enabling roaming for their vehicle when they go across multiple countries, right? So that's something that we do. And we are also doing a lot of incubation and innovation in this area, working with many OEMs and electronics and telemetry providers, etc., to come together and put them all together and test it in a network, right? So we are an active participant, as I said, and connectivity, wireless connectivity, cellular connectivity becomes an important element of this entire connected, sustainable mobility solution. And happy to be part of that industry and happy to be part of this conversation. And thanks, over to you, Vinita.
Thank you, Vishy. As you were speaking, and I'm sure our audience is also probably going through some of this, it sounds so exciting and still a little scary. And I think that is the tenet of anytime you're trying to do a major disruption. And we are so close to, we're sitting on the cusp of that change. And that is why that feeling of excitement and fear is there. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I actually was visualizing driving across multiple European countries seamlessly with my car being connected. And that's a very good feeling. Thank you. I'd like to go around with a couple of detailed questions. And I'll begin again with Mr. Upal. Mr. Upal, you wear the hat of head of HR also along with your IT role. And that's a unique combination. So would love to know your thoughts on the whole workforce angle, right? And how do you prepare an entire organization at all levels for this disruptive space? And in addition to that, if you could throw some light on what are the challenges that you're facing around actual implementation?
Okay. See, if you first and foremost, as you said, it's not a general, adopting a technology. I think we are facing that transformation is the right word for, at this stage in this industry to look at that. And people are not ready for the transformation and all. And how do you make sure that you make organization ready for this transformation to look at? And also traditionally, you can't hire also those kind of people in the regular industries because normally those kind of skills required are difficult to get and maybe they're not ready available in the market at the point which we can hire them openly. So you need a very strong talent strategy to manage it, frankly. And important for that is we started this with creating a separate organization, independent, and ensure that they are empowered and given enough budgets and guidance so that they can drive that, and also that the routine work and the whole innovation work goes separately, then really you really getting disturbing each other. So that's first is creating that right organization with the right kind of empowerment and right kind of HR policies to ensure that. Also maybe the right kind of environment to work also is very important to us. So that is something which was first thing which we tried and we built that up. Second important element is, these kind of changes and this DX transformation, whether it's connected and everything around, is very important from point of view of the whole organization readiness to adopt that. Now, when you talk about IoTs in the shop floor, or you talk about the people in the field in service where they can going to get this data and going to consume that. So second area which is very important is the capability to consume. And that's something which is again as a drive we looked at right from all levels in the organization, right from senior management to first to look at this as a technology around. And we are the partners who worked with us to ensure that we create that whole not only awareness, but I think literacy may be the right word for at all levels to ensure that they are able to ready to consume this in the organization, to look at that to work on. And also third is the whole challenge for us was the integrating the open innovation into our system. Organizations are typically organized to work with the large partners ecosystems and contracting with them to give some solutions to you, and where you're getting into the mode where a startup, you need to sit with him, you have to co-create the solution with him and all. It requires a very different mindset and different kind of contracting to work on and all, which typically large organization doesn't have that and all. So we have to create those ecosystems to ensure that we adopt that into our organization to go along. You talked about challenges to really drive this going forward. Maybe I think good thing in Maruti, we are over the years are able to create the whole culture of IT across the ecosystem. Right from dealerships where which is normally a contact point for our customers to get into, we are able to integrate all the application from dealers into a single application of ours to really manage this and all. So for us, we have a very strong base available of that digital understanding in our ecosystem, which is continuously being enhanced going forward. And maybe one big challenge always has been, especially in our size of operations we have, is to ensure that each person in the whole ecosystem, each mechanic at each and every workshop of ours, which is more than 5,000 now at all the country level, speak the same language, understand the same technologies, and you have a whole ecosystem to train, retrain, and continuously develop them. Is the one big challenge today. Look at that and all, and also in those industries and those areas, iteration also is very high. So how do we really keep on trying to really get them on to do that? Secondly, the big challenge has been the people available on this technology to work on, and the demand of those skilled people in the whole industry around. I guess everybody is facing that problem right now. But your ability to really sustain that whole skills in the organization, and also get right partner ecosystem who work with us on an ongoing basis to ensure that they supplement those skills with their people, and they're able to help you to drive this and all, is the whole challenge of ability, which typically, as I said earlier, a large enterprises, and we are not are or maybe has been not doing this in the normal course of business with us, where auto industry work with the long-term contracts, and you work with us and all, and you are a lifetime partner for us, where you're looking at, okay, for one small niche work, you work with one partner, so some of these and work with other partners, close that and all, adopt that into a system and go forward. I think that agility in the organization maybe is the transformation which you need to build to really ensure that you adopt those technology into the company.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Upal. And I was just thinking of the spectrum, right? Like on one hand, we're talking about the whole scale issues, large company, movement, attrition of mechanics. And on the other side, you're looking at setting up small startup-like companies for the innovation. And that spectrum is amazing. So I'm sure these are very, very interesting times and sort of very tough times within your company. Thank you for shedding light on that. I'd like to next ask Bob about these ecosystem challenges are common for all of you, for all the panelists, I'm sure. But from your aspect, right, what are the ecosystem challenges you face from from sitting in the shoes of Mahindra as a large company, and in the whole rapid adoption of this connected mobility in the next few years?
Yeah, definitely. So challenges are plenty. So before we understand the challenges, you need to see the kind of opportunities the connected platforms and systems bring. Huge kind of opportunities and huge kind of different kind of business models that is possible. So to enable these opportunities and business models is you need to build an ecosystem. So the ecosystem is getting your right kind of partners, as Mr. Upal mentioned, is working with startups and getting your right skill set, having a separate vertical to do it and things like that. And it's not only the partners, you need to identify who your data consumers are, right? At the end of the day, it's not worthwhile, or I mean, from a business standpoint, I've made this huge investment, I'm generating that experience and thing, but who's going to pay for it? So you need data consumers as well. So keeping these two aspects from the partners who is involved in generating experience and the ecosystem who are the data consumers. What are the challenges among these two? The first fundamental challenge is uh, the data strategy is not one big project that you know get a big revex or a capex implemented and it's done. No, it's a journey, and you have to do it step by step to get where you want to be, right? And different organizations or different partners are at different stages of this journey. So how do you seamlessly integrate these people to generate an experience? That is one major challenge. And let's say, for example, when you say integrate, it's fundamentally data exchange, right? So once data exchange is involved, and Mahindra operating all over the globe, challenges are with respect to the data privacy laws that are prevalent in each region or geography. Then you have the security of the data. Then the person, the people whom you're taking consent to access the data, how are you going to use the data? So the kind of mindset that people have, let's say, for example, an ag machinery owner, if you tell him that I'm monitoring your tractor 24 hours, 365 days, he gets kind of paranoid saying, who are you? Why are you doing this? Right? So then it is an exercise that you need to explain to him. The data consumers per se itself, okay, what is the volume of data that you're going to give? Am I really going to benefit with the current volume that you have? And what is the correctness of the data? And how do you ensure the correctness of the data? And then the perfect synchronization. So these are very fundamental challenges that you will face. The bigger challenge is when you develop the system, who's going to bear the cost? Right? Because it is not a system that you develop and sell. It is a system that you develop and maintain, and it's a continuous integration and deployment activity. It is not an one-time affair. So that's where the software-centric piece comes. So how do you manage these costs, and how is going to bear the cost? Do I bundle 3 years of subscription into the vehicle, or do I actually collect it from a data consumers? But I'm not mature enough. I don't have that kind of volume to collect it from the data consumers. Or do I bear that cost for the first 3 years or 4 years? That is a big question mark we've been trying to answer for quite some time. And then we've been trying different models here and there. Right? But my take on the whole thing is that you need to give this service free to the end consumer so that you generate that experience. And then you create an ecosystem around it so that once the ecosystem is created, you have the data. A simple example is when we were having a conversation with an NBFC. So he said, okay, how many vehicles do you have connected in the system? And we gave him a number. He said, no, that's not enough. I don't think I'll be able to generate value with this. So he gave us a minimum target. And he gave us a typical variant and model saying, I want this variant model. This is your hot selling model. And this is where I can also make money. And that is it. So how do you tend to achieve that? Because systems like this has different other kind of challenges as well, technical challenges as well. So technical challenges include previously you had very primitive, cloud solutions and things like that. Now it's all matured. You have components that large data handling is taken care very well by either Google or Amazon or IBM and so on, whoever you name it. So that's mature. Then you had data connectivity issues. And even today in the ag segment, you have data connectivity issues. There are places where the machines operate and there is no connectivity. Though Tata Communications have multiple file SIMs and they do manage things well, still there is data. So how do you manage that? Because sometimes data flow is critical for at certain points to make that decision. And then how much of consent do you have from the end user to actually follow the data? Say, for example, it's a financial institution which is dispersing loans. So he wants to understand whether this person will be able to pay easy, has he had enough business or not based on his machine working. So does the user actually give consent? Because you're literally tracking the machine wherever you're going, wherever it is going. Right. So these are the different kind of challenges. Though 4G has and multi-profile SIM and the technological challenges are being handled. With 5G coming, it makes it all the more ubiquitous. So the other aspects of it is the emotional and the cultural aspect also that has to be considered. Right? So because data privacy is a very big thing that is they've been taken up. And in some of the countries or some of the geographies, they don't even have the right legislation to do. Even if you have the legislation, what is the governance mechanism that you have to maintain or see if something goes wrong? How is there? And does the organization itself have that data governance mechanism in place? If there is a threat, how does it handle the incident? So data governance means right from the design to incident management. Right? So all those aspects. So all these are specific challenges, right? From cost to your data protection, to your data exchange, seamless data exchange, and data privacy. So all these challenges are coherent, but the opportunities are plenty, and we're still at the tip of the iceberg.
Thank you, Bob. And I think we've got some questions coming in too. So maybe I'll take a question in between, which is related to what you just said, which is the tiering, right? In the automobile sector and manufacturing sector, the tiers are the system, right? They are the ecosystem. And the question is, are the tier 2 and 3 vendors digitally connected with the automobile OEMs? And if not, when do we see that happening? So your point of view on this space, please.
Some of them are. So if you see the new age startups, they are well thought ahead.
Digital first.
They are connected. Some of them who still hold legacy systems, they are in the journey, and the next 2 to 3 years they will be.
Perfect. And I'd like to add at this point of time, that's where CII Center of Digital Transformation is actually very critical and can be a partner to your digital journey. We have, as you would have heard in some of the sessions, we have something called Dexcel, which is an assessment tool which you could take and then use that for forwarding your digital journey. There are two more questions, but I'll come back to those a little later. I think let me move to Mr. Amit right now on, and Bob, you mentioned a little bit about the security aspects. I think super important in all industries, even more in something as new as a connected vehicle. Mr. Amit, if you could shed a few points on these, the whole cybersecurity at the tier 1 level, whether it's a vehicle component or the product level, and what's happening in that space. How are we moving towards more secure connection?
Yeah, so I think, cybersecurity and mobility, very, very critical aspects as we go forward to more autonomous and more, uh, more and more connected vehicles. And I think the aspects that we're looking at is basically we're having more software defined, like vehicles in the future, and infotainment, in a car today has possibly 10 times more lines of code than an F-16 fighter jet. And with these more and more complex systems on boards, these do make it fairly complicated to make sure that they are secure. Hyper-connected vehicles in the future would not only just connect the consumers to their vehicles or the vehicles to the OEM cloud, but it would also connect other, other shared providers, as I said, energy management companies and maybe shared mobility providers. So they are today already getting connected, and they would be more hyper connected in the future. I think also this whole, introduction of 5G is again going to make things a lot more complex. We are today essentially in India really at a 2G level, where, as far as vehicles are concerned, moving towards 4G. But again, very soon, you would see 5G bring in several new challenges in this area. At a 4G level itself, we just have one radio connection at a time. With 5G, we would look at multiple radio connections or multiple connections at the same time, more cloudified networks, and all these would bring in more threats as far as vehicles are concerned. More digital tech, AI, these again would actually bring in more complexities. AI very essential for the new autonomous world. I mean, you could look at poisoning of AI models. In IoT, look at more man in middle kind of attacks that could happen, and 5G would make this more and more vulnerable. As far as I think quantum computing, for example, could make the encryption that we know of as of today obsolete. So I think all this are bigger and bigger threats that we're looking at in the future. So as tier ones, and really as we work with more and more OEMs, I think we are looking at this basically at 4 different levels or 5 different levels. Number one, we look at what's inside each component or each hardware component that we supply. And here you're looking at ensuring that the selection of electronic components that we use have essential security and encryption and keys, that you could use in order to secure your mini computers, as you can call it in today's cars, at a component level. Number two, how do these each component talk to each other within our product itself? You can forget about the number of ECUs. We're looking at 20, 30 ECUs in a car, but even within an ECU, you have multiple components that talk to each other. Each communication is a threat that could be, we could essentially also look at attack. Second, we are looking at how these different ECUs talk together and what kind of encryption and security protocols exist within the vehicle. Plus, you're also looking at the interfaces between the vehicle and the outside world. And here is where different types of communication, whether we are looking at Bluetooth, cellular, NFC, RF, ultra wideband, LoRa, you have various new communication challenges, and each one of them pose, absolutely different kind of threats. You're looking at reducing latency in many of these cases in order to ensure that you're more secure. Reduce man in middle attacks where you're really looking at ensuring that there's more like more direct encryption and data transfer that happens. Next is all this amount of data. I mean, the data is going to be unmanageable in the future, right? And it's going to be even more complex. And how do you ensure from both the process, the regulation, the standards perspective, how do you secure all this data that's coming out of these vehicles, as well as obviously personal data? And how do you manage at a cloud level these threat perceptions, and then ensure that you have more and more security through the process? Obviously, there are several regulations coming in. While we work on this 4 or 5 things that I said, right, at a component level to also defining at a product level, but there are a lot of regulations already coming in. The SAE 21434, cybersecurity framework, the WP 29, the global regulations, also talking about cybersecurity. We are going to have ever more complex regulations to deal with, and new business scenarios are also going to make this more and more complicated. So definitely cybersecurity at more at a product design level, as well as cybersecurity at an organization level. The amount of importance that we would need to give it going forward, I think, is extremely important. So staying close to what's happening in the regulatory world, being able to design also products in the future which have the right cybersecurity frameworks incorporated is going to be more important. I think one of the biggest challenge I see in this area is that when you look at a car and a typical OEM, and I think Bob and Upul-san will talk to you about that it takes around 2 to 3 years for you to develop a car and actually put it on the road. Whereas most of these connectivity technologies, we're seeing them change every year. How do you make sure? I mean, right now, the selection of a modem even I would do for a telemetry in the vehicle will get obsolete maybe by the time the vehicle would be out on the road, and ensuring that these be relevant again for the 10 years that the vehicle is going to be in use is a absolutely different puzzle to solve. Ensuring that you roll out updates to these vehicles for the next 10 years and make sure that there is connectivity methodology to even connect to these vehicles is a very complex story. So yeah, several challenges in this area, and that we'll all have to work with. Yeah.
No,
Thanks,
absolutely. And being able to upgrade it, right, without changing a thing is where I think we will, but it'll take some time till we get there. And with cybersecurity, of course, it's like, I mean, we have to look at different kinds of vulnerabilities literally every day, because newer ones are being made as we speak. Vishy, again, there's 2 more questions will come, so we'll go a little quick between now and we have about 15 minutes left. But Vishy, if you could tell us about some details on the communication aspects and the expectations that the car manufacturing organizations have. What's the communication life cycle of a connected vehicle?
Thanks, Vinita, for that question. Actually, if I look at the life cycle of the vehicle itself, typically what they call like cradle to grave, or in a much better terminology, from design to decommissioning of the vehicle. If you look at that entire life cycle, you heard from Amit, Mr. Upal, Bob, everyone saying that there are lots of complex technology that is getting into the vehicle, right? Like Amit was saying, there are 20 ECUs inside the car. Essentially, you are running a small data center, within the vehicle with 20 special purpose computers, each of them probably multi CPU, their own memory and everything like that, right? So now one of the key expectations from a lifecycle perspective would be, how do you make it modular? How do you make each of these things modular? Like we talked about, maybe the communication technology getting obsolete, or some other part of the technology getting obsolete in a year's time or in a few years' time, while the vehicle in itself is expected to live for 10 to 15 years, right? So there is a expectation at the design level to make it modular and make these different computers talk to each other if, as required, and then also talk to the rest of the world. So there is the communication gets embedded right at the design stage. The second part is, we are used to selling a few models of a given vehicle, maybe a little bit of a variant on top of it. But as like the way that Bob was explaining, you are collecting so much of data about individual behavior, individual choices, and things like that. You may have to move towards more of a hyper personalization type of a mode, even for a car. That means no two cars or two vehicles will have identical specifications. That means you should be in a position to rearrange a car depending upon the need of the consumer, right? So there is a lot of testing validation that happens during the design phase. So there is a expectation that you have a test track and you are able to bring in all of these technologies together. You are able to run them, look at how they perform in the given network. In 4G, how do they behave? In 5G, how do they behave? If I connect individually each of these 20 ECUs to the network, how do they behave? Do I collate all of them into one common network and then connect them to the bigger public network, etc.? So there are a lot of things that is expected out of it in the design phase. Now, when it goes into the shopping side, when the shopping models also are also changing. For example, I remember, one of the top tier vehicle manufacturers having a complete virtual shop. So you use technologies like augmented reality, mixed reality, etc., for you to configure a vehicle and then send it to the OEM. So that also brings in the hyper personalization part that I spoke about, right? How do you put all of these things together to create a very customized vehicle for Vishy, which is quite different from probably what Vinita uses or Amit uses, right? So that's something, even if the brand may be the same, the model may be the same, but it is personalized. So that's a expectation from a selling side. So use of
It's like build your own car, right? Like,
yeah, build your own car, right?
building-
Exactly. Right. And this is at the selling level. And then and there are other things that we could do, remote demonstration. There are a lot of other things that communication can enable here. The most critical thing is when it comes into the manufacturing line. So because we are talking about hyper personalization, probably the next two cars that are getting manufactured are of different specifications completely. So not like you don't, probably the concept of a line will disappear. Every car is individually manufactured. They're all, hence you require an extremely good robotics and good communication technology running within the factory. Bring in industrial automation, industry 4.0, mobility, rearranging the robotics and configuring the robotics on the fly when the manufacturing happens. Also, things like inventory, fetching the inventory by, sort of drones and AGVs inside the my car manufacturing unit, so that for every car you bring in exactly the inventory that is required to be built into that. So there's quite a lot of integration, communication, technology that happens within the manufacturing. Similarly, the moment you get onto the road, the customer experience, the driver safety, infotainment, the telemetry, all of that, plus an important point that was brought about ubiquitous connectivity, right? So there is also now the new thing that's happening is, how do you merge a terrestrial and non-terrestrial mode of communication? You have these new sets of satellites that are being launched by various organizations in the world. How do you bring them all together to interoperate with the mobile network and see, can you do a terrestrial versus non-terrestrial type of communication, and collecting a lot of data within the car, and then what do you communicate from the car to the infrastructure is another question. So there again, quite a lot of technologies like 5G, etc., come into picture. And all of these things are exposing vulnerabilities right from your design stage all the way to the car running stage. There are quite a lot of vulnerabilities that are getting added. So how do you secure the car? As I said, if the car itself is a moving data center, how do you bring in security within that data center? Is another. How do you embed security in every aspect of the vehicle, right? And then post sales again, there was there was a mention about lack of skills available, mechanics leaving and all that. So how do you bring in technology? How do you de-skill a task? How do you bring in AR, VR and automation to de-skill a task and then make it available using communication, be it in the manufacturing unit, on road or during post-sale service? How do you enable self, self-care type of a thing, what you normally get on a mobile phone or a laptop or many other white goods? How do you bring in self-care mode into a vehicle? So there are a lot of these expectations that are set, and for all of these things, common factor is having a very stable and ubiquitous communication system.
Super. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that vision. I think there's a question that from the audience on digital twins. So is digital twins actually being used in the automobile industry, especially by OEMs? And Bob, maybe if you could take that first, and then if others want to add to that question.
Yes, definitely. Digital twins are being used. We use digital twins in our product design and especially engine design and engine performance tuning. To start with.
Bob, could you just be a little closer to the mic? It's a little faint.
Yeah,
Your
can you
voice.
hear me now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, we do use digital twins. So we use it in product development and especially with respect to designing or fine tuning engine parameters and things like that. We use in digital twins, and we tend to bring it to the mainstream maybe a few years down the line. Yes, OEMs are using digital twins.
Perfect. Thanks. So that coming directly from you makes sense. So I know Mr. Uppal had to leave. There was a question specifically for Maruti. It was more about how can startups get inroads to Maruti. I think it was a very specific question. We'll ignore that. Let us, I think I wanted to do something like a quick answer across all of you. You could take a couple of lines, 1 or 2 minutes to answer this. And this is coming from me from being from the outside of automotive industry. But what's your science fiction like dream or use case or feature in this space that the space of connected mobility that you hope you can witness in your lifetime? And I'd urge you to go far and look for a feature that's not in your design or in your factory already. Tell us more about something that you wish to see. Bob, since you're already on the spotlight, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. So with 5G and V2X all coming in, autonomous coming into picture, I think flying cars will definitely be a reality, and Hyperloop will definitely be a reality. And I think I'll be able to travel once, at least, during this lifetime, and an Hyperloop.
Yeah, imagining the amount of time that will save. Thank you. Mr. Amit, what's your dream in this space?
Yeah.
And you
I
could give
think-
us multiple, that it doesn't have to be
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
few.
So I think, I mean, yeah, there are several. Being able to travel around India without needing to buy a ticket or book things, so more or less free multimodal transportation around, around the country. Being able to plan a Goa trip with the friends with 1 hour notice in 3 cities. So I think there are several. Flying cars isn't in it yet, but maybe soon, yeah.
No, amazing. That does sound. I mean, I think travel. I think earlier when you were speaking about build your own car, Vishy, and I was just thinking that the reasons for designing one's own car used to be design, right? If you see the DC cars or the customized cars that existed. They were all driven by design. I need a door that opens in a different way and so on. But now I feel we are entering the space where technology and connectedness will be the driver for the customized cars, and design might just follow around that. And yeah, I hope they have wings. Vishy, what's your dream that you'd like to see?
So I take an autonomous cab or a self-driven vehicle, go and leave it somewhere near a metro station, take the metro, which is again autonomous, and being able to completely integrated and connected shared mobility, fully enabled using the infrastructure, communication infrastructure, compute infrastructure, city infrastructure, all sorts of infrastructure. So no noise, no pollution, no congestion, and no parking rules. That's something that I want to achieve. And if I own a car, and I should be able to purchase facilities or features inside the car as and when I require, right? I'm watching, I get an advertisement about a particular movie or I'm not driving, it's an autonomous car. So I get an advertisement for watching a movie or a match. So I should be able to subscribe for that on the fly. That means my car becomes my e-commerce client. So this can be enabled. By the way, it's not phantom, it is really enabled. There are features called SOTA and FOTA, software over the air and features over the air, which OEMs are using already to push this, but it's not become as real time as I'm talking today. Probably that's what I feel in 5 years from now, if I'm able to achieve this, that'll be a great achievement for us. And there are some countries in the world who have already sort of moving towards that much faster than we are.
Yeah, no, I know you were sharing about that. And when you started speaking about this, yeah, my first thought was parking. I mean, we are struggling with simple issues like parking, so that does lead to the whole infrastructure space. And we had a whole day dedicated at this conference itself on the infrastructure space. So at some level, even that is a connection that we're looking at. I think this is great. I would have loved to hear Mr. Uppal's dream also on futures and see that coming from Maruti. But with that, I think this you guys you all were such great visionary panelists. I think I learned so much in this space that I can talk on this topic at a much more detailed level than I could earlier. Thank you so much, and I hope the audience enjoyed your views too. Back to you, Kavita.
Thank you, Vinita. Thank you for moderating this very interesting session. It was very insightful, lots of learnings for all of us, and to see what all digital transformation can do for us if we visualize the extent of it. So I would like to thank all the speakers, Mr. Rajesh Uppal, who had to leave a little earlier, but we'll let him know about the questions we had from the audience for him. Mr. Bob Paul Raj from Mahindra & Mahindra, thank you so much for your insights. Mr. Amit Jain, Mr. Vishwanathan Ramaswamy, it was wonderful to have you all at the session, and we'll of course invite you again for one of the sessions that we'll do during the year. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of this session, and we'll start the second session of the day. Today is the Automotive Day, so the session on digitization of the automotive value chain would start at 12:30 p.m. Request the audience to kindly log in for that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.